What's up, YouTube? We got a yo-yo review to do today. This is the Duncan Roadrunner. So, Duncan Roadrunner, $35 yo-yo in addition to the Duncan Runner series. If you'll remember, the Windrunner came out late last year, I think. Was that late last year? I think it was. I think I got one for Christmas. And this is the Roadrunner. Cool little engraving there. Got it in blue, because blue is a cool color, and it's got some winter edition, last year's winter edition zipline string, matched very nicely. Everybody was asking, I posted a picture of it on Instagram yesterday, and everybody was asking, like, what is that yo-yo? What is that yo-yo? And I didn't say anything, but it was this. It was the Duncan Roadrunner. Anyway, let's get into the specs before we get into anything else. Diameter of the yo-yo is 52.97 millimeters. The width is 44.92 millimeters. The gap width is 4.1 millimeters. The weight is 64.8 grams. Size C bearing, 19 millimeter slim pads. It was designed in USA by Duncan and machined in China. Okay, so Duncan Roadrunner. I wanted to love this yo-yo. I'm disappointed by this yo-yo, and I will tell you why. So, I just read off the specs to you. Gap width generally is about 4.5 millimeters. If it goes a little shorter than that, that's okay. 4.1 millimeters it's too tight. That is a tight gap. That being said, on top of that being a tight gap, those red pads that Duncan uses, they didn't exactly fit inside of the recess. So the recess in this yo-yo was the pad stuck out just a minuscule little bit, making the gap even tighter, making a already very tight gap even tighter. And they used red pads, which are the grippiest pads. Think of it as between flowable silicone or that red RTV silicone. These are sort of red RTV silicone, and they are super grippy. So the response in this yo-yo was already too much, and I like a good snappy response. This was too much. It's too much. Way too much. Aesthetically, I like it, but the gap is so tight, and those stuck out a little bit until we wore in the pads, and I say we because I brought it to Yo-Yo Club, and literally, collectively, for the 2 hours of Yo-Yo Club, everybody sort of passed it around and binded it to kind of help me break the pads in, and they've done a decent job doing that, and that they broke in, because these pads don't last terribly long, but they're still too grippy and the gap is still too tight. It's also a little unstable. Now that has to do with it's only 64.8 grams and the diameter is very small at 52.97. Honestly, I think this could have used another prototype, another tweak before they went ahead and ran with this. I think the gap should have been a normal 4.5 millimeter gap. At least 4.4, 4.3, something like that. I mean, give me a little more to work with there. Really not a lot of room for string wraps and things like that. And if you do a lot of string wraps or any string wraps at all whatsoever, you really drag down the yo-yo speed and you gotta bind. Luckily, it binds pretty much all the time. It's for as wide as it is and as competition-oriented shaped as it is, and for as big as these rims are, it's sort of medium stable. Like, it's maybe a little bit less stable than I kind of had hoped it would be. So it sort of underperforms in all the categories, and I really wanted to love this yo-yo. But it just seems like it really needed another prototype. And that's sort of been it's disappointing to me, because I like it still, and it's fine. It's totally acceptable yo-yo. It spins at the end of the string. You're not going to pay a ton of money for it. But at the $35 price point, there's a lot of yo-yos that are just better, had a better design, ended up just being better overall. Let's go ahead, we'll throw this around a little bit. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Alright guys, we are back with the Duncan Roadrunner. And first thing you'll notice is that the gap is very tight, and you can feel the response pads on the string as you bring it off the string. It's not terrible once the pads have broken in, however, it's definitely something you're going to want to do. You may want to change the pads to the slippier white pads, or just recess silicone it yourself. Maybe get some monkey snot if you have that. Response is good after you've broken it in, but beforehand, out of the box, it was a rather disappointing throw, and I can still feel the response, like kind of drag along the string, or like kind of snag onto the string as I pop the yo-yo off of the string. Good for that bind, though, clearly. Another thing, too, is that they sort of use too short of an axle. Like, you can see that this is, like, kind of a longer spike. It should facilitate a longer axle. I feel like if I over-tighten this, or if I tighten it as much as I want to tighten it, it's going to strip. And I don't want to strip, because I paid money for it. Out of the box. I mean, it's not good, you know? So the grind finish is fine. I'm not sure I like the ridges, but I think aesthetically they look good. I don't think they do anything for the grinds because it is kind of a blasted finish, but it grinds okay. No problem with the grinds. What you would expect. Thumb grinds, doable. No like IRG to catch your hand in, but it's a big enough lip that you can get your thumb in there and do some thumb grinds. Maneuver's okay once the pads are broken in. It's nice and light, so it doesn't feel clunky on the string, but you get that little bit of snagginess, and that just kind of makes it tilt a little bit. I don't know. It's not as stable as I want it to be. I kind of have to focus a little more to keep it on plane. But once the response pads broke in, that kind of helped a lot more. Finger spins are doable. There's room in there, but it's not going to be your favorite finger spin yo-yo. But get those binds. It may rip your head off. So very snappy binds. If you really like really snappy binds, you'll like this yo-yo. But I think it could have used a little bit of a bigger diameter as well. I think that would have also helped with a little bit of its tiltiness problems. It's about as smooth as you would expect. I've taken it apart a ton. I'd give it about a 9 out of 10. A little bit of fingernail vibe if you're looking for it, but not bad. Down here. Just ever so slightly, but I mean, it's pretty smooth. So, good on that. You know, it's a decently smooth yo-yo. I wish it was great. It's fine. It's good. I wished it was great because this is the type of yo-yo that I like. That sort of wide, bell-shaped H type thing, and it's just okay. And I want to love it. I want to love it more, but it just, out of the box, I kind of wish they'd have done another prototype. I really, really wish they'd done another prototype. So let's go ahead, we'll put it on the desk, I'll take it apart, and then we will do pros and cons. Okay, we're back on the desk with the Duncan Roadrunner. Alright, take it apart. Standard Diffio licensed Duncan bearing. Spins a long time, spins quiet, it's 10 ball. I did have to clean and re-lube mine because it showed up and got cat hair in it and like froze up and was being responsive, but spins good now. Spins a long time, real quiet. Duncan does use great bearings in all their yo-yos. Pretty much any of the Duncan bearings you get is a good bearing. So, kudos to them for that. The axle, with mine is stuck in this half, is a little too short. In all truthfulness, it could be longer. There's more room for it, but it's a little too short. And I feel like it gets stuck in one half, and then it doesn't want to thread enough threads in the other side. And that's a good way to strip like the beginning of the yo-yo, and I'm not a fan of that. So, got to be careful with that when taking it apart and putting it back together, because if you over tighten it, it might strip. So here's the pads. As you can see, there's a 4.1 millimeter gap, and these pads, do they stick out anymore? Just a little bit. Just a hair they stick out still. Kind of hard to see, but it was worse when I first got it, and I broke them in a little bit. As you can see, pads are kind of worn a tiny tinch. So it's not as bad as it was out of the box, but it's still like I don't know. It was a disappointing kind of a thing on first throw. I feel like first throw is so very important, and first throw on this was like, wow, this yo-yo is very, very snappy, too tight to too easy to bind, and it's still kind of like that. I kept the original pads in here because I wanted to do the review with the OG pads. I'm gonna stick different pads in there and see if that helps. I think it will. Some slippier pads. Usually I don't like slippy pads, but in yo-yo with a 4.1 millimeter gap, I feel like slippy pads might be the only way to go. So to keep the yo-yo from just, being dragging on the string. It goes together okay, but again, I want to tighten it, but I feel like it's turning not in the right way. I don't want to strip it, so I feel like the axle length could have been a little more precise as well, and maybe that's just nitpicking because it's tight now. I guess it's probably not gonna strip, and it went back together nice and smooth, but it's just the way the axle, it's got a little bit of play on each side, and I don't know. I felt like am I gonna strip this? Am I not gonna strip this? Not over cranking it, just getting it tight. Maybe that's just in my head because it's still fine. It's still very smooth as well, but something to think about. So let's do pros and cons. Pros, grind finish is good. $35, pretty cheap, and I mean it's a solid player for $35. I mean nothing. If you change the pads particularly, I mean it'll probably be a lot better. I'll touch back with you guys once I change the pads on it. But grind finish is good. Can handle finger spins pretty well. Can really kind of just handle everything. It's a very nice all-arounder. I think that's really what Duncan's going for in the Runner series, sort of a $35 yo-yo that's great all-arounders, and good for whatever you want to throw at it. I thought the Windrunner was very good, although I felt like its axle was a little short. Probably would have been easy to strip. I haven't stripped mine, but I also don't take it apart or play it very much. Cons, too grippy, too tight of a gap. I mean, it's really not ideal for the types of tricks that are popular now, especially with those red silicone pads. Like I said, I'm going to change those. Hopefully that fixes most of my problems with it. Breaking the pads in really helped a lot. I was really disappointed with it. I'm liking it more now that I've got the pads broken in. But right out of the box was just kind of, oh god, why would they do this? I really wish Duncan would have done another prototype. I think this could have used a little bit bigger of a diameter, maybe a little bit more weight, maybe another half a gram, and I think it could have used a bigger gap. I think that really would have made this yo-yo much better. I think it would have taken it from, oh, this could be so good, I like this shape so much, to, wow, this is an amazing yo-yo. And I feel like they sort of fell short of that. And, I think Duncan puts out great products. I'm a Duncan fanboy. I've been a Duncan fanboy for my whole life. I wanted to love this yo-yo. I wanted it to be one of my favorites. I wanted it to be in my top 10 list for the year, especially at only $35. But it's disappointing. It was disappointing out of the box. It gets better, but out of the box, I was just disappointed. So it's okay. I'm not saying don't get it. It's if your mom gets you one for Christmas, it's a good price point. Not a bad yo-yo to have. It's fun to play with. I can't say that Duncan's put out anything like this. It's decent, but if you think it's gonna be like a great, awesome yo-yo, like if you think it's gonna be like competing with like the top yo stuff and that price range and stuff, it's just it's kind of not. It's about as good as the Windrunner, I'd say. I think my expectations were a little higher. It's about as good as the Windrunner, but it's not. It falls short of great, and I think it could have been great. But that's just my 2 cents on it. So tell me what you guys think in the comments. I know this one's been out a little while. Did you guys get one? Leave me a comment down below. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers to you. I'll see you next time.